Hey everybody, it's Party Elite with another episode of Total Breakdown. This one is from the finals series in the excellent long-form tournament that was happening over at Clan Community. Irongeneral and Daman battle each other as Greenskins and Beastmen by the Ancient Dragon Cave. Make sure to check out the link below to Clan Community if you want to get involved in a great competitive scene. Alright, if there's anything that can be said about this battlefield, it is certainly that it is not flat, especially on the left over here, so I'm very happy to see both armies have deployed to the side here to try a little bit of cheekiness. So you'll see the Greenskins are led by an Orc Warboss on piggyback with a Potion of Toughness and Wa, and an Orc Shaman does accompany him with Power of Dawa, Gaze of Mork, and the Foot of Gork. Up front, we have 2 units of Night Goblin Archers as well as the Rusty Arrows, I think hoping to shoot over the cusp of this hill and get some early damage in if the enemy does push in this way or come in through the plains, maybe push these guys up and fire over this hill. That might be the thinking there, but of course it's a very risky position because the enemy might be thinking similarly. Then right behind them, though, we do have 2 units of Nasty Skulkers, 2 units of Orc Biggins, and this unit of Savage Orc Biggins over here, so that just in case the enemy does do something clever, they'll be able to push in and provide some protection while the Night Goblin Archers and the Rusty Arrows actually pull back. Right behind that melee line, we also have 3 units of Savage Orc Biggins, and these guys, again, can dive in to bolster this soon-to-be front line, or can come in with side charges, rear charges, provide some support with flanking maneuvers as well. On the topic of flanks, we do have a pair of cavalry units on either flank. We've got the Forest Goblin Spider Riders as well as the Orc Boar Boy Biggins, and these guys can work very well together between the poison from the spider, and the anti-large and armor-piercing we've got from the Orc Boar Boy Biggins. A lot of hurt can be done by these guys pushing in nice and early, shutting down enemy cavalry if they're trying to penetrate, or of course pushing for rear and side charges of their own. We also have this unit of Night Goblins all the way over here, and they do have a stalk ability, so they will be hidden if they decide to creep up the plains over here. And I think most importantly, they're all the way to the side here just to get some scouting done to make sure that the enemy is or is not arriving through the plains over here. So great deployment there, and you can see the Beastmen did have something clever planned themselves as well. As you can tell with the mini-map, none of the Beastmen units are visible. The only few that are outside of this sort of terrain blockage are these guys that are tucked in the trees. Now, the Beastmen themselves are led by Morgor the Shadowgave, who does come in with Apocalyptic Vision, the Ruinous Stave of Corruption, and the Spirit Essence of Chaos. Right behind him, we do have a Brace Shaman of the Beasts coming in with Flock of Doom, and the army itself is relatively condensed in its main lines. We've got 3 units of Goreherd with Shield up front, while right behind them we have 2 units of Chaos Spawn, able to either pummel in right afterwards or come in with flanking maneuvers and rear charges just to get that extra morale damage in. Then, on either side, we have a unit of Ungor Spearmen Herd, again, able to fend off any large units that might come crashing in, or join into the center if there are any giants or an Arachnarok Spider, something like that. Then we have the Ungor Raiders back here, of course, able to provide that range support, creep up with the army, and get some shots off nice and early, while you can see we've got Harpies on either flank, very close to a set of units on either flank as well, 2 units of Senegor, and 1 unit of Chaos Warhounds with Poison, again, on either flank each, so these guys are able to get in and get a lot of damage in nice and early, or of course deflect enemy cavalry that's coming in. There's some poison in there, and there's a decent amount of hurt to be done by Senegor. So overall, very clever play from both generals here. Let's see how it all breaks down. So right away, you'll see the Beastmen are being very aggressive. They too have a little bit of scouting in the form of this contingent over here, able to see that there's nothing in the plains, there's nothing deployed over here centrally, so probably assuming that the enemy is deployed over here, while the Greenskins likewise are able to assume that the enemy has deployed over here, but risky maneuver with that consideration. These Night Goblin Archers are creeping forward. It's a very dangerous spot for them to be in, but these Nasty Skulkers, though, are pushing up alongside. You'll see these Harpies do get pushed out nice and early to get a bit of scouting done as well, just to get all the information as necessary, and you'll see right away the Night Goblin Archers here do turn around to open shots off at the Harpies, but again, a bad call there. The general here should have been relatively aware of what's going on the other side of this little cusp here, and you can see the Senegor are thundering down the hill now, pushing in for a tremendous charge. The Harpies are coming with them as well. You can see the Night Goblin Archers really need to think twice about what they're doing, and as the Senegor come in, clump down on the Night Goblin Archers here, you'll see they right away get completely taken care of. They do not wish to fight, immediately breaking, immediately giving up and routing. So great work there, and meanwhile you'll see the Nasty Skulkers are pouring in to try and provide some support. We also have the Forest Goblin Spider Riders and the Orc Boar Boy Biggins diving in alongside all of these units, just trying to clump in and get a decent amount of hurt in, while the Rusty Arrows off to the side over here, you'll see popping off some shots at the Ungor Spearmen Herd. Meanwhile over here though, with this massive clump taking place and an Orc Shaman on the field, you can expect exactly what's about to happen. Now these guys should have pulled back back, seeing that massive icon on the ground there, should have pulled back into some safety, and take a look at the amount of damage done by the Foot of Gork here. All of these guys are more or less at full health when the foot starts to go down, so let's take a look at it as it comes crashing down on this massive clump, causing a tremendous amount of damage. And the 2 units of Senegor, the Chaos Warhounds with poison, are completely devastated. Their health is brought down to almost nothing. Their morale drops instantaneously as well, and you can see those guys have been basically taken care of in one fell swoop. Meanwhile, on the right flank over here, you'll see the Ungor Spearman Herd are able to close the gap into the Rusty Arrows, so they're in a bit of a precarious situation, but they are pulling back now while we do have this response from the Savage Orc Biggins, but these Harpies are coming in alongside these Chaos Warhounds with poison and the Senegor Herd there as well, just to get some damage in and toss these Savage Orc Biggins aside. Now, these guys do have damage resistance and they are anti-large, so a bit of a dangerous situation, but the numbers are in favor of the Beastmen. Meanwhile, back in this central location here, you'll see, almost as a response to the Foot of Gork, Flock of Doom goes down, and a good target here. A lot of units clumped together, a lot of damage to be done here across multiple units that are otherwise resistant to physical damage, so not a bad call whatsoever, and also taking care of some of that range support at the same time. Meanwhile, you'll see over here as these guys come crashing in to the Savage Orc Biggins over here, they do need to respond to that aggression, of course, so these guys are diving in. We've got some anti-large coming from the Orc Boar Biggins, we've got these Force Goblin Spider Riders diving in as well to bring some poison support in, and of course the Orc War Boss himself is getting involved as well. Meanwhile, you'll see over here Smoke Bomb does go down, not entirely sure what the thinking was there. It might be just to keep these guys from being able to chase these Night Goblin Archers as they retreat, but you'll notice the Ungor Raiders here are able to get a lot of work done, firing away at the Orc Boar Biggins, doing a great amount of damage, not only to health, but also to morale. So great work. They're focusing on a very threatening unit on this left flank and making sure that they're not able to stay engaged. Meanwhile, all the way on the right over here, you'll see these Night Goblins are sort of indecisive in whether they want to get involved or not. Should have been pushed in to get some rear charges and maybe get some poison in here, get some support from those Night Goblins, but you'll notice we do have some shatters going on already. The Ungor Spearman Herd do give up, overwhelmed by the sheer amount of Greenskins that were bashing away at their skulls. And meanwhile, over here, the Orc Warboss does return to the front line with Wa active to try and support these guys and try and win that front line. Meanwhile, all the way back here, you'll see we have the Senegor engaging with the Orc Boar Biggins as well as the Forest Goblin Spider Riders. A head-on engagement here. A little bit of mismanagement there. If these Chaos Warhounds with poison had just been tucked around to get a rear charge, or stayed until these Savage Orc Biggins came and charged in and then got a rear charge in, then the engagement would have been much more in favor, I think, of the Beastmen, but instead they all decided to pummel in, dive in, and get fully engaged. You'll see, though, the Ungor Raiders here are able to get some support and fire into the backs of these Orc Boar Biggins and do a decent amount of hurt, especially to these Forest Goblin Spider Riders as well, already having them give up, not willing to fight anymore. Meanwhile, back here at the front, you'll see we have another Foot of Gork lining up, getting ready to stomp with his other foot here. This one is not as well placed, unfortunately. It doesn't have as clean of an angle, doesn't target as many units in the center or the epicenter of the impact, so you'll see it doesn't do as much damage, unfortunately, but still, good call there, getting a little bit of hurt in, forcing that center to finally collapse and give up, because you'll see otherwise the Beastmen do have the upper hand here. They are forcing the Greenskins back, and meanwhile over here you'll see the Senegor, despite having a head-on engagement there with enough support from that range unit there, are able to shut down the enemy cavalry. The Greenskin cavalry is on its way out, not willing to stick around and fight, and these Orc Biggins arrive just far too late. Meanwhile, you'll see the Ungor Raiders here continue to fire away. These guys need to be shut down, and honestly, if the Orc Biggins had been sent after the Ungor Raiders instead, it would have made a huge difference to this skirmish that was going on back here. At the same time, though, you'll see as the Savage Orc Biggins did dive in, they were able to scare off the Senegor as well as the Chaos Warhounds with poison, just to make sure they're not able to freely get some damage in and maneuver wherever they want. The anti-large and the damage resistance that Savage Orc Biggins provide is absolutely wonderful. Meanwhile, you'll notice back here we have a lot of units sort of sitting around, looking pretty. They need to be sent in right away. There's a lot of people just hanging around, not doing anything, and that's very dangerous in a situation like this where the enemy is overwhelmingly pushing forward. They could have taken the day right now, but you'll see back here we do have the Savage Orc Biggins and the Orc Biggins turning around to shut down the Ungor Raiders here, diving into these guys, and they have to retreat, of course. They have to pull back, and you'll see the Chaos Spawn over here trying to pull in and provide some support, hopefully shut these guys down once and for all, and allow these Ungor Raiders to fire freely as time goes on. Meanwhile, you'll see back here the Forest Goblin Spider Riders do decide to get involved finally, while the Night Goblin Archers are pulling in as well, but these guys are still back there, not getting involved. They need to be pulled in, while down here you'll see the Chaos Spawn is able to catch up to the Orc Biggins, starting to get a lot of damage in both to health and to morale, and the Ungor Raiders as well now able to open open fire once more. So these guys really should not have given up on that chase, because just take a look at how much damage is being done there. A lot of work being done, while back here the Orc Warboss manages to circumvent the entire situation and tries to shut down these Senegor back here. Now, if these Senegor were pushed in for a rear charge, or if we had these Harpies come in for a rear charge, you would have seen the Greenskins here fall apart basically instantaneously with that extra morale damage with a rear charge. Meanwhile, down here you'll see the Forest Goblin Spider Riders are able to push in and charge into some of these Gore Herd with shields to try and shut them down once and for all, turn those routes into shatters, and make sure that they don't return to the field, while again, the real target, the real threat is actually these Ungor Raiders. They're getting a lot of work done. Meanwhile, back in the center you can see a lot of dead bodies here, but Morgur the Shadowglaive is currently engaged with these Savage Orc Biggins, trying to get a lot of hurt through. He is, of course, always regenerating. He is very resistant to damage as well, so staying alive, doing pretty well, while the Orc Shaman tries to get a shot off at the Bray Shaman of Beasts, pops the Gaze of Mork, fires through the trees. Not the best angle of approach, of course, because magic missiles will hit any obstacles in their way, but they do get a decent hit still, do a decent amount of damage, and also force the Gore Herd here to shatter with a little bit of collateral damage. So these guys are pulling away, again working quite well, allowing the Greenskins to now turn the tide in the center once more. Meanwhile, back here you'll see the Orc Warboss once again activating Wah, using the Potion of Toughness, maybe a little prematurely, just trying to finish the Senegor off back here, while now you'll notice the Forest Goblin Spider Riders finally decided to engage the Ungor Raiders, shutting down that range support, and maybe just barely saving these Orc Biggins and these Savage Orc Biggins down here, allowing them to actually destroy the Chaos Spawn, cause a decent amount of hurt, and force them to turn back. Meanwhile, we also have these Night Goblin Archers firing away at the Ungor Raiders over here, again just making sure that that range support is shut down. Very important, should have been done a little bit earlier. Meanwhile, the Orc Boarboy Biggins are pushing in as well. Finally, the rest of the army is getting involved. We still have some units not really pushing in, sitting around again, looking pretty, not doing anything. They need to be pushed in, they need to get involved, because this is a very precarious situation still, though the balance is very much in favor of the Greenskins. Morgur the Shadowglaive can very easily bring some Chaos Spawn to the field and completely ruin the Greenskins' day. Meanwhile, you'll see another shatter over here as these Senegor give up on the fight. Chaos Spawn decide to dive in on the Orc Warboss. The Orc Warboss is able to get involved, but you'll see the Rusty Arrows here firing away and killing that Chaos Spawn. Morgur the Shadowglaive, meanwhile, chasing after enemy leadership. Not the best call, I would say. Morgur will do well against most other units. If he decided to dive into, say, the Savage Orc Biggins down here instead, he may have actually got them to shatter, but now he's opening himself up to fire from the Rusty Arrows, and the Orc Warboss as well is able to turn around and get some damage in. Not the ideal situation, of course, for the Orc Warboss, but this is really not the best use of Morgur the Shadowglaive, and at this point, you can see the Beastmen have largely given up on the battle. They're not able to stick around for much longer. They are falling apart. They are shattering all across the field. And over here, we do have some Chaos Spawn brought to the field, but really not enough, and a close victory for the Greenskins. Now, an extremely aggressive start for the Beastmen gave them the early advantage alongside the element of surprise, but this advantage was very quickly lost as the first Foot of Gork eliminated some very valuable units from the field. After that, the Beastmen immediately fell on the back foot, having a hard time holding any lines despite being able to effectively shut down some enemy cavalry that was too eager to fight. One has to wonder how differently things would have gone had the Beastmen simply pulled back before that first Foot of Gork landed, right after that first charge. Would have made a completely different end to this battle. As always, make sure you subscribe to this channel for more Total War content and keep sending in those battle replays. I do think it's one of the best ways to learn, and it's always nice to see such great battles from the community highlighted. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the battlefield.